friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we will be making cheesecake, and we're not just going to be making one big cheesecake. We're going to be making a variety of cheesecakes, and to do that I'm going to be using my 24 cavity cupcake pan. So here I have 6 columns and 4 rows, so I will be making 6 different cheesecakes, and it will be 4 of each. So here are the things that I have for my cheesecakes. As we know, the basics are cream cheese, eggs, vanilla extract, sugar, a little bit of salt just to balance out the sugar, our graham crackers for the graham cracker crust, and since we're going to be making Oreo cheesecakes, we have our Oreos for the Oreo crust. Here we have our raspberry, strawberry, and guava preserves, and that is going to be for our raspberry swirl cheesecake, our strawberry cheesecake, and our guava cheesecake. Here we have our Nutella for the Nutella cheesecake. Back here I have some guava nectar, and this is going to be to make a guava glaze for the top of the cheesecake. Basically, we're going to be cooking up that juice with some sugar and cornstarch to make a glaze. To give my cheesecake a lighter texture, I like to add a little bit of cake flour. So, rule for cheesecake. For every block of cream cheese, you have an egg. So, 4 blocks of cream cheese, we have 4 eggs.
And each block of cream cheese is 8 ounces. So now that we have all our ingredients gathered, let's get to baking. So to start off, we're gonna set our oven to preheat at 350. And this is for the crust. To start my graham cracker crust, I'm just going to take some of my graham crackers and toss them into the food processor. If you have graham crackers and you don't want to pull out your food processor, you can always throw them into a Ziploc bag and crush them in there. Or you can also buy the box of ready-made graham cracker crumbs. For the crust, you're going to need 1.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs, along with 3 tablespoons of unsalted melted butter and 1/3 cup of sugar. Once your graham cracker crumbs are done, you want to make sure it has that texture of wet sand, so it should stick together when you press it down. Now that our graham cracker crumbs are ready, we're going to get a few Oreos, twist them open, remove the filling, and place the filling into a separate bowl. we're gonna save this for later, and this is gonna be for our Oreo cheesecake. So we're gonna toss the cookies into the food processor and do the same as we did with the graham crackers. Since I was only making 4 Oreo cheesecakes, I only needed about 8 Oreo cookies. So after pulverizing that in the food processor, I used about 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then I added 2 tablespoons of melted butter. So now I'm just throwing a little bit of the crumbs into the filling. That way when I mix it with my cream cheese filling, I'll have the little specks of the Oreos, and you can easily identify that it is the Oreo cheesecake. Now to form our crust. So since this is a non-stick pan and our crumbs contain butter, we don't need to prep this with non-stick spray or parchment. Now I'm just going to spoon 1 tablespoon of graham cracker crumbs into each cavity except for the last row. The last row will be for our Oreo cheesecake, so in that row I will be placing the Oreo cookie crumbs. If you're wondering what the glass cup is for, it is to press down my graham cracker crumbs so that it can be nice and compact and form a nice firm crust. So this is the best thing that I found in my kitchen to press down in the cupcake tins. I found that this cup fits perfectly, but you can use whatever you have in your kitchen to form your crust. Now I am laying down the Oreo cookie crumbs, and I'm going to be pressing those down as well. Now we're gonna bake those crusts for about 5 minutes at 350 degrees. But keep an eye on them because they will burn fast, so it all depends on your oven. To start the cream cheese filling, I'm just gonna place the 4 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese into my stand mixer. I'm going to be using the paddle attachment just to make sure it scrapes everything off of the sides. And you want to make sure that your cream cheese is at room temperature so that it'll be nice and smooth and mix well with all the other ingredients. To this, we're going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and this is just to balance out the sugar. Now it's time to take the crust out of the oven. I don't want them to burn while I'm working on the filling. Now I'm gonna add the 4 eggs, and we're gonna do this 1 egg at a time. You wanna make sure that each egg is fully incorporated before you add the next. To lighten up my cheesecake filling, I'm just gonna add 2 tablespoons of cake flour. here are the preservatives I'm going to be using for my cheesecakes. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of lemon juice into each of them and mix them, and this is going to thin them out a little bit so that it's easier to swirl into the cream cheese filling. If you don't want to use lemon juice, or if you still find it too thick, you can always microwave it a few seconds just to kind of thin it out. Remember that Oreo filling we set aside? Now it's time to take that and put it into the microwave for a few seconds. We want to melt the cream, that way it's easy to mix into the portion of cream cheese that we separate for the Oreo cheesecake. Since I know that each cavity holds 1 ice cream scoop of cream cheese, I'm going to be using 4 scoops of cream cheese and adding that into my Oreo cream. And then we're going to mix this up because we want to make sure that we see those bits of Oreo crumbs in there. That way we can see that that is the Oreo cheesecake. Now that my crust has cooled, I'm just going to spin them just to make sure that they're not stuck. So far 2 of them are not, so I know I'm safe. For the guava cheesecakes, I'm just going to spoon a little bit of the guava preservative onto the crust. From there, I'll be scooping on the cream cheese, and I just want to get a nice thin layer of that preservative at the bottom, so when you bite into the cheesecake, you have a layer of the graham crackers, a layer of guava, and a nice thick layer of cheesecake. So now I'm placing 1 scoop of cream cheese filling into each cavity of my cupcake pan. And if you notice, I haven't put anything on the other crusts. It's because those are the ones that I'm going to be swirling the preservatives into. So we're gonna have guava, raspberry swirl, strawberry, and Nutella swirl. For the raspberry swirl, I just put the preservatives into a parchment piping bag that I made, and I'm pushing it down into the middle of the cheesecake and squeezing out the preservatives. And I'm just gonna use a toothpick to make little swirls all around. put it into the microwave. That way I can melt it and I don't get like a thick glob anywhere. So we want it to be nice and smooth. That way we can just put it into the parchment bag and do the same as we did with the raspberry swirl. And of course, with my luck, as I cut off the tip, it flies right into the cheesecake. So, of course, I had to go back and retrieve it. Now I'm going to scoop the Oreo cream cheese filling into the Oreo crust. And if you look closely, you can tell the difference between the Oreo cheesecake and the regular cheesecakes. I went back and added a little more Nutella to the Nutella cheesecakes because they looked like they needed a little more. I don't know about you, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just because I like chocolate and I like Nutella, so I thought I'd mix in a little more. So my husband had just gotten home from taking my son to MMA, and I was just telling him the different types of cheesecakes that I was making. So I just explained to him what each row was. Now we're going to bake our cheesecake at 350 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. When you pull them out, you want to make sure that they have a little jiggle and that they're not undercooked, but you don't want to let them get too firm because then they will be too dry. While the cheesecake cools, we're going to start our guava glaze. So for that, we're going to need our guava nectar, and we're going to be using a half cup of that, 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, and we're going to whisk that on medium heat until all the sugar has dissolved. From there, we're going to take about 1 ounce of water and 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and we're going to make a slurry. And the reason that we do that is so that we don't get clumps in our glaze. After making our slurry, we're going to slowly incorporate it into the guava juice as we whisk so that it'll be a nice smooth consistency. And here is the result of our guava glaze. Gotta say, that came out pretty good for the first time. So for the Oreo cheesecake, I just used some ready-made whipped cream because I really didn't want to make whipped cream from scratch at that moment. And I'm just going to place a little Oreo on top so that you can see it is the Oreo cheesecake. And on one of the plain cheesecakes, I am putting strawberry preserves with a glazed strawberry on top. For the Nutella, I decided to pipe a little bit of Nutella and sprinkle some hazelnuts on top. One of the things that I like about the way the cheesecakes came out is that they kind of cupped a little bit, so it allows me to nestle toppings on top. So for the raspberry swirl, I put some whipped cream and a glazed raspberry, and now I am putting the guava glaze on top of my guava cheesecake. And luckily I was able to tell that that was guava because it did seep out of the side a little bit. So here we have our Oreo cheesecake, our plain cheesecake, Nutella, strawberry, raspberry swirl, and guava. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe. Please try out these recipes. I will be posting them soon on letsgetitdone.blog. Have a blessed and wonderful day. Bye.